Hi, I'm Liz, and I healed from myalgic encephalomyelitis, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. And I've come back to share my story and the stories of others who have healed. Nothing on this channel is medical advice nor meant to contradict what you yourself have discovered to be true. But I hope by sharing our stories, we can inspire you on your journey. Hi, everyone. I am so grateful to have Jodie Goss with us today. Hi, Jodie.
Hey Liz, how are you?
Wonderful. So Jodie fully recovered from a 3-year journey with myalgic encephalomyelitis, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome or ME/CFS. And she's remained healthy for 10 years now and is sharing her inspiring story with us today on how she healed. So Jodie, what is your purpose for sharing your story today with us?
Well, I guess really it's just to give people hope. I know that when I was unwell, I desperately wanted to hear from people who'd had great recoveries, because it can be very disheartening when you try lots of things over and over and over again and don't get the results that you want. So I'm hoping that firstly, my story can inspire and encourage other people, and also to talk about the tools that I now teach other people, which were the tools that helped me get better in the first place.
Wonderful. So Jodie, can you describe how your journey first began with ME/CFS?
Yeah. So I'm originally from London, which you can probably tell from my accent. And I was working as an entertainment reporter in the radio industry. I was having a great time. Career was going really well. And I got offered a new job. It was basically my dream job. And I decided to take a couple of weeks off in between the two jobs just because I was feeling a bit run down. And within 2 days of having that break, I came down with shingles and it was horrible. And after about a week, the rash subsided, but I was left with these very flu-like symptoms that I couldn't shift, and they were just going on and on. So my main symptoms, and I know everybody who has ME, there's a lot of crossover, but lots of differences too. So for me, my main symptoms were the fatigue, body pain, and brain fog. And digestive issues were kind of in there too, but those were the three top ones for me. I eventually had some tests done. They said I had mono, and then after quite a few weeks, and I was seeing lots of different specialists because I just couldn't get back to myself, they eventually said that I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And I was kind of told it could take weeks, months, years. There's not really very much we can do about this, so just rest and pace yourself was the messaging that I got. On top of feeling awful was just a devastating message to get. I was like, hold on a second, I've got this job waiting for me. I can't be in bed right now. I've got things to do. I've got places to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really disheartening. And that's how it all began. It basically led into a 3-year journey of trying lots of different things to get well. Traditional medicine, going into hospital for brain scans and sleep analysis, Chinese medicine, changing my diet, acupuncture, like anything you can think of, I gave it a go. You know, I was trained as a journalist, so I was like, there was not going to be a stone unturned for me.
I did all that researching stuff too. So did any of these treatments you found helpful in any degree?
So what I would find is maybe I'd get a little bit of change initially, but nothing for me that stuck. And during those 3 years, you know, I fluctuated during that time. There were some times where I was able to go to work and to vaguely function, sort of feeling like I was pulling myself through mud. You know, I could get through the day, but it didn't feel good, but I could do it. And at other times, I had weeks on end, sometimes months, where I was just at home. And even if I could get outside for 5 minutes and walk around the block, that was amazing. But I was also very fearful of what that might mean afterwards. You know, would I be okay? Would I then be in bed for another 3 days because I went outside and went for a walk? So yeah, some of these different modalities helped a little bit, but nothing with any lasting difference until I came across the lightning process, which for me was the last key in the door.
What was your experience seeking medical answers? You tried the other modalities. I tried acupuncture too. I tried everything. But what did you get from the traditional medical system?
I eventually saw who was said to be the top ME specialist in the country. And he was a delightful guy. But actually, he didn't really have any answers for me either. And I get it. I think really what I wish doctors would say is actually in their toolbox, they don't have the tools to help, but there's lots of other things out there. He did prescribe me antidepressants, and I was very resistant to take them because I said, I'm not depressed. I am frustrated and I'm angry and I am upset because this is how my life is right now. And I don't want it to be, but I didn't feel depressed. But he had said taking them could change the chemical balance in my brain and help in some way. And in some ways it did. In some ways it didn't, but yes, for a certain period of time, I was able to function a little better and go back to work, but I knew that I didn't want to be on them. And now in hindsight, I do think a lot of that was placebo for me, not for everybody, but that was my experience of it. But yeah, no, it was a very frustrating experience.
Did you try exercise at any point during recovery? Were you given advice around this, or did you try to incorporate this on good days?
Yes, I did try some exercise. I had a sort of physiotherapist because I also had quite a lot of pain. It's hard to remember the exact details. In fact, it feels like such a distant memory now for me in a great way.
Yeah.
But yeah, doing much more than maybe a walk around the block. You know, exercise is a broad term because when I did go to work, I would be walking to the train station, getting on the train up to London, walking to my office, being in the office, coming home. And I remember having a friend on like the 5th floor, and I worked on the 1st floor, and going up and just crying my eyes out, just being like, I just can't be here. I've got to go home. But so yeah, that in some respects on some days counted as exercise. The fact that I actually got out the house, got up to work, and functioned.
Many people, mental exertion is just as challenging as the physical exertion aspects. For you, did you really feel it trying to cling on at this dream job, all the mental exertion as well?
Yeah, I mean, I found a lot of pressure in that situation, and I really wanted to do that job. I was very committed to it, and I did it as much as I could. The company I worked for were very understanding, so I was lucky in that respect. But yes, mental exertion is as tiring, if not in many ways more tiring, I found, than physical. Because
I'm right there. Yes.
What does this mean? Am I going to be okay?
Yeah.
How's this going to play out for me over the coming weeks and months? What if I do this? So there's so much questioning and so much anxiety and worry and fear at the same time as trying to deal with the physiological side of it. It's a lot to be dealing with all at once.
Exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't have considered myself an anxious person before my journey, but it is a side effect of not knowing what's happening with your body and your life and having control over it. So, can you describe your trajectory back to health? You mentioned the lightning process. How did you discover that? And can you talk about your turning point and your road back to health?
Yeah. So I actually remember it very, very clearly. I was reading a newspaper and I saw an article about somebody who'd had ME, taken this training program called the lightning process, and had made a full recovery. And, over the next couple of days, I had lots of people sending me that article who'd also seen and said, have you thought about this? And it sort of raised my interest. I was a little skeptical to start with. The lightning process, in a nutshell, is about using the science of the mind-body connection to improve our health and well-being. And I didn't know very much about the mind-body connection at that time and the science around it. So it's really, when I read that article, that just started me on a journey of discovering and reading and researching and talking to people. And I spoke to those who'd taken the course, and that was really, really inspiring for me. It took me quite a few months before I decided to actually do it. But yeah, eventually took the course in January 2009. And yeah, I mean, those 3 days completely changed my life. I felt like I finally understood how and why my body had got stuck and why it wasn't recovering, and then what to do about it. I was given really practical tools to change that and to shift it. And I practiced those techniques consistently. And my personal journey was, I noticed some shifts during those 3 days. I remember very clearly leaving on the third day and getting the train back home and just having this very different sense around me of like, yeah, I've got my answer here. You know, I just have to be consistent with this now. I remember going to a friend's wedding 3 weeks after and dancing all night.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, my first jog. We lived in an area of London very near Hampstead, which is beautiful and in the middle of London, like a big park there. And being dropped off, it was freezing cold because it was February, and being all wrapped up and going for a jog and just having this euphoric moment of, I can do this and I know I can do this. And then I was back at work after 6 weeks, and yeah, that was it for me. And then since then, I mean, that's now coming up to 10 and a half years ago, I carried on working full time. I set up a business in the UK. I ran the London Marathon, which was always...
Whoa! Congratulations.
You know, I got married, I've had children, I've moved to California, and now I'm a practitioner of the lightning process. It inspired me so much that I wanted to give back and help others with it.
And I'm so happy for you, especially about your children. I know that's a dream for many people with this condition, and you have a wonderful family now. That really warms my heart.
Actually, with the children, because that for me, when I first became ill, I had just met who is now my husband. We just started getting... That was the other weird thing. It's like I had this great job. I had just fallen in love. In many ways, I should have been in like the best place ever. And yet I got really... When I was on the antidepressants, one of the reasons I wanted to come off them was because I knew that we were going to get married at some point, and I wanted to have children, and I didn't want to be on medication. That was one of the driving forces for me to come off that medicine and to find another way. And I'm not recommending that for everybody. This is my personal journey. But for me, I wanted to know that I could be my version of healthy without the medication so that I could go on and have children.
So you had that big why, big motivating factor. Yeah. And I remember you telling me your husband said he would only propose when you're fully better. He said he'd be with you forever, but he would propose when you're fully better.
Yeah. It was, my friend had just got engaged. And I said to him, you know, like, when's it going to be our turn? Like, everybody, all of my friends were getting married, and he said to me, I know that we're going to be together forever, and I'll always be here to support you, but I also know that you can get well, and we're going to get married and celebrate when you're completely better. And that was, yeah, that again was like sort of that thing that said, I've got to do this. I feel something in my gut that this is the right thing, and that just pushed me to actually sign up.
So I want to just ask you now. So a lot of people have been told ME is just in their mind, and we both know it's a very real neuroimmune and hypometabolic condition. We're finding out more every day. The researchers who are now working on this from Harvard, UCSD, all over the world. I know it's real, but the mindset stuff and the thoughts, the beliefs, the patterns, that stuff helped us get out. How did you deal with this nuance? And can you explain that to our listeners?
Sure. So it's not that ME is in the mind, that it's psychosomatic. I completely and utterly disagree with that, wholeheartedly. But what we can do is use the science of the mind-body connection to change our physiology. The way that they're not separate entities, the mind and the body. They work in conjunction with each other. So we can use the mind to change the way that the body is working. In the same way that we can use the body to change the way the mind is working. You know, if anybody's gone out for a jog or for a run or something, you don't just feel good in your body, but you feel good in your mind too. Yeah, they affect both. If you do a meditation, it's not just your mind that feels clearer, your body feels calmer as well. They work in harmony with each other. So it's not that ME is in the mind, it is that we can use the mind to positively affect the body. And that's what psychoneuroimmunology is, how our psychology affects the nervous system and how it affects our immune system. The three are interlinked.
I love how also now science is starting to catch up with this and really find how they are interlinked. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about the science behind the lightning process and the process itself? Yeah.
So the main thinking is that our body is designed to heal, right? We're designed to thrive, to repair, to fight infections. And what we're looking at is why for some people, when they get an infection or they're dealing with a trauma or something like that, why did they then are able to recover from that and life goes on as normal, and for other people they don't? What is going on in the body that is stopping our body from healing and repairing in the way that it's naturally designed to do? And what we tend to find is that it's a nervous system that's out of balance. We have, as part of our autonomic nervous system, two strands: our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. Our parasympathetic nervous system is what looks after, I say, like the plumbing in our body, all of that stuff that happens at an unconscious level that we don't have to think about. So regular heartbeat and blood pressure and body temperature and getting restorative sleep and thinking clearly and our healing and immune system and our digestive system and all of these amazing things that happen, we don't even have to consciously be a part of. The other part of that is the sympathetic nervous system. And that's sometimes referred to as the fight and flight response or the stress response. And these guys work with each other. What's meant to happen is our parasympathetic nervous system is doing its lovely healing, amazing stuff, keeping an eye out for infections and getting us better. And then occasionally there's a threat in our lives. And this is a very primal response to sort of when there was a tiger with caveman was out hunting. And you have this threat and the parasympathetic nervous system shuts down. So our sympathetic nervous system can be on high alert to deal with that situation so that we can fight that tiger or we can run like the wind. And for it to be in this heightened state of awareness, it borrows energy from our parasympathetic nervous system. So we have this big threat like a tiger. When we survive that and everything's okay, then slowly those stress hormones go out of our system, that goes back down to baseline, and then our parasympathetic nervous system carries on doing its magic, right? That's what's meant to happen. In modern day society though, the way that this is designed to be used, it has changed. So rather than having a big stress, very rarely, we're getting lots of little stresses.
Lots of little tigers.
Lots of little tigers. Stress comes in all shapes and sizes, right? So it can be illnesses like bugs, viruses, chemical like the chemicals in our food or the pollution outside or medication that we take. It can be physical, like a physical injury or an accident. It can be emotional, like a big trauma or a bereavement, the breakdown of a relationship. And it can be the everyday stuff of life too. Financial problems, exam stress, lots of scary headlines, being bombarded by lots of headlines day after day, month after month, right? So all of these things, our body responds as if we are under threat. So what can happen is we have a little threat, and then as that's calming down, something else happens. And as that's calming down, something else happens. And as that's calming down, something else happens. And before we know it, we've got this nervous system that isn't functioning in the way that it's designed to. This one never gets the chance to get back down to baseline. When this happens, as I said, this one is being suppressed, the parasympathetic nervous system. So if our digestive system isn't working properly, then maybe we can't absorb the nutrients from our food. If we're not getting restorative sleep, that's going to cause its own physiological problems.
People with CFS, we try to find the best diets. I love how you say that the parasympathetic nervous system is key here because that helps us digest our food. And when that's working properly, we're going to be able to digest more foods. And for me, when I was dealing with ME/CFS, my body stopped being able to digest entire food groups. And now that I'm on the other side, my digestion's better than ever because I work to heal that fight or flight and get back into that parasympathetic rest and digest state. So can you tell me a little bit about the specifics of what you teach? So you don't have to give away all the marbles, but just a general idea of what the lightning process is to get into that parasympathetic state.
Yeah. So the crux of what we're trying to do is teach people how they can rebalance that nervous system and allow that parasympathetic nervous system to do all the healing stuff that it's designed to do, right? That's what we're aiming to do. And so there's lots of things around that we look at. So one is psychoneuroimmunology, the way that we use our psychology, our mind, how that influences our neurology, our nervous system, and how that influences our immunology, so our immune system and our healing response. We look at neuroplasticity, as you mentioned before, the way our brain adapts depending on how we use it. We look at language. Neurolinguistic programming is a big part of the work that I do, like how the words that we use are like the architects for the patterns and the programs that we run at a very unconscious level. We look more at the fight and flight response, about how when it's out of balance, how that can stimulate and how it can affect our physiology. So there's lots and lots of different concepts we look at, how our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, our beliefs, how these also can affect our biological functioning.
So once we know all that stuff, then what's the next step?
So once people really understand how and why their bodies have got stuck in some way, I then teach a very specific technique, which is a combination of lots of different modalities. There's gentle movements, positive psychology, visualization, woven together in a very unique way that when used consistently can switch off those neurological pathways which fire up that stress response, and instead fire up new pathways which encourage the nervous system back into balance and re-trigger, re-fire up the body's natural ability to heal. It's a 3-day, sort of around 4 hours each day of understanding the why this has happened and then how we can shift it.
I love what you say about the body's natural ability to heal, because the very beginning, like you, like everyone, we were looking for a quick fix or what doctors that saved me. And we then realized the power within to heal ourselves. It's also very empowering, the kind of work that you do.
It's teaching people how to take the reins of their own health. You know, we're taught so much in Western society that the answers lie outside of us. There's some amazing, both traditional and alternative methods that do create a lot of change for people, but there's a huge component that we can do ourselves. And that is very empowering to know actually we can change what's going on. We can contribute to our own health. And yeah, that for me was one of the huge draws of taking a course like the Lightning Process.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about my personal experience with neuroplasticity. I did another program, it was called DNRS. And so for me, a part of why I think it worked had to do with the timing. I dealt with environmental stress in my life. I got out of my water damaged home and moved to a sunny home. I took my gut to calmer waters. I learned to create boundaries in my life after failing countless times. And another thing I did was saw a coach who helped me identify some of my emotional stress triggers. But that being said, I was living in a bubble. I was ready to do more than survive. I was really ready to thrive. I also believe that it worked for me because I had tried everything and I was desperate and I was like, I cannot live in this bubble anymore. And I had just had a major crash. And so that's why I think timing might have played a role in why I think I was open to it. And also some of the things I had done before, I think were helpful in the terms of the healing process. So in your experience, does timing play a role when it comes to success with neuroplasticity work like the Lightning process? Or is there anything you generally recommend clients do before or in conjunction with the Lightning process?
Everybody's body is different.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's experience of CFS is different. I almost had the opposite effect because I felt like all the things that I had tried weren't working. Well, in hindsight, I can see this now, but I can see that maybe for me, they weren't working that well, or I wasn't getting the lasting benefits from them because my nervous system was out of balance.
Thinking of another person's recovery story, there was a relationship in her life that was causing extreme stress and she needed to break free from that relationship. Sometimes we can, work on ourselves and for pretty healthy relationships, but when you're dealing with maybe like a toxic relationship or a job that you hate, sometimes our body is trying to tell us something. Maybe we should deal with that or leave that situation?
If somebody comes to me, like at no point would I ever, or any LP practitioner, say, this is what you should do, this is the right thing to do. Because nobody knows what is right for that person. But if that person can get to a place where they are functioning as the best version of themselves with the clearest headspace from the most resilient spot possible, then they can make the most useful decisions for themselves and they can see the wood for the trees. A lot of people think the lightning process is the study of health, and it's actually, that is obviously a big part of it, but it's more about how do we become the best version of ourselves, and the positive health benefits are like an amazing side effect of that. Because when we are functioning from that place, you know, life is always going to do this, right? Life is always going to have its ups and downs and difficulties and challenges and wonderful things. What we want to be doing is operating from a place of being our most authentic, truest, happiest, healthiest, most at ease us. And then when we're dealing with that stuff, we can make the most useful and best decisions for ourselves.
I just want to know how you kept your spirits up despite setbacks. My recovery out, my upward trajectory, it wasn't linear. I had a couple bumps along the way. You know, life happens and sometimes we have some setbacks. How did you deal with those, and how did the tools you learned from the lightning process help you bounce back?
You are actually taught during the process how to deal with some of those complexities.
Okay.
So actually, when they do, if they do, when they do, you know how to handle them in the best possible way. You also have, so the main bulk of the LP is the 3-day seminar, but any practitioner will work with you beforehand to make sure that you're really ready to take the course. You mentioned earlier about timing. I think for me, it's there is timing is important, because it's about whether people are really ready to work, to because it's not all smooth sailing. You know, there are incredible moments and there are some tougher moments. So to really give that commitment to themselves. So I would say preparing beforehand, there's a 3-day seminar, and then afterwards you have your coach who's there. There's lots of follow-up appointments and things like that to help keep you on track. So that's very helpful as well. But I think in and of itself, the more you use the process, the more you start to notice the positive effects, the more your physiology starts to change, the better you start to feel. And that in itself is a great driving force to continue using those tools until you really get the life that you want.
And you said something in our previous chat, just you and me, you said something about going to the brain gym.
Yeah, taking the lightning process is like going to the brain gym. We are training the brain to work in the way that we want it to work, rather than the way it maybe automatically has been. And anything that you are learning, any kind of training, takes some consistency, takes some commitment. You can't go to the gym and have your personal trainer show you the equipment and think that you're going to get a six-pack. Same with anything. If you're learning a language, you can turn up at the lesson, you can listen to the audio, but if you don't practice that language, it's never going to become automatic. And it's the same with the LP. The more you practice it, almost the less you have to do it, because you just start to automatically function from that place. But yeah, it is taking your brain to the brain gym.
I love metaphors. So what was the most helpful takeaway from the lightning process that you still refer to today?
Gosh, there are so many. I think one for me was just a phrase of, is it useful?
Is this useful?
We talk a lot through the process about the stress response. People often say, does that mean I can't feel the full range of emotion? You know, does that mean I can't talk about stuff if it's not positive? Which isn't the case at all, because I really feel that all emotions, all feelings serve a positive purpose. That's my belief. If we ask ourselves, not is a emotion or a feeling or a belief right or wrong, good or bad, positive or negative, but is it useful? We can differentiate. Sometimes when we're crying and feeling sad, that may be very useful in helping us process something. Or if we need to talk to somebody about a problem that we're having, helping us find a solution, sharing, having that communication, that time with somebody and being comforted. Sometimes these things can be very useful. A line that we can sometimes cross where we are talking about something or thinking about something so much that we are just sitting in neurology that is contributing to keeping us stuck with that particular thing. Just a day-to-day example. Let's say that we are driving home on a Friday night and we get stuck in traffic for 2 hours, and it's pouring with rain, really frustrating. And when we get home, we say to our partner, oh my gosh, just been sitting in the car, it's so annoying, I couldn't go anywhere, all the lanes were blocked and it was so annoying. If we say, is this response useful? I mean, it's subjective, right? But really, for the most part, I would say that's a very useful response to have. You know, we've been sitting still, having that fight or flight response in the car. It's,
you know, get it out. Yeah.
That's a Friday night. Let's say we're still talking about that traffic jam and how annoying it was on the Sunday to everybody that we've seen, and we've thought about it over and over and over. And then we say, is this useful? By that point, again, it's subjective. But for the most part, I would say at that point, it's not useful anymore. It's not helping us process what we were going through in that car. We're just sitting in neurology that's keeping us stuck with those bad feelings. So yeah, that question of, is it useful? We really look at that on a much larger scale in terms of our health to distinguish, you know, ways of thinking, being, behaving, responding, what beliefs are useful for us, and choosing the most life-enhancing, health-enhancing ones that are going to really help us move forward in the way that we want to.
I love that. So
what a lot of people find with the LP is that they come for a particular health concern, either physical or emotional. And once they have overcome that, they then know that they have this tool for life that they can use in lots of different areas. And so for me, a couple of times I really kind of went back into it was when I was pregnant with my first daughter. In those early weeks and months, I was feeling very nauseous and absolutely exhausted. And I was starting to get worried that, oh my gosh, what does this mean? Is this the ME? It's a very similar. Yeah. And so to use the LP to get myself back into a place of trusting my body, knowing what's going on, separating these things out. So that was very helpful. And I also used it hugely when I moved to LA. We moved here coming up to 7 years ago now. And I really found the first couple of years very, very tough. I experienced loneliness like I never had before. Whenever I was meeting people, I never felt like I was actually showing up as myself. I was always questioning myself and worrying what I was saying, and felt like I didn't fit in. And yeah, it was brand new. And I was pregnant in the first year I was here with my second daughter. So there was lots of stuff going on. We had, it was a very difficult few years. A lot of challenges came up for us. That was when I had a friend over and we were discussing something, and I was helping her, and she said, you know, you really should consider training as a lightning process practitioner and using those tools again. And it was like a light bulb moment for me of like, why am I not using this? The tools are so versatile. So I really got back into it then and started using the techniques to, you know, I couldn't change the fact that I didn't know anybody and that I was by myself and things like that, but I could change how I responded to it. And that's what it really teaches you to do, is how to be in the most useful state of mind for the job at hand. How to interact with these challenges in the most useful way. So I really used it for that, and it really changed things around for me so much for a second time that's when I was like, this is my time to become a practitioner. I always knew that I wanted to, but this was sort of the real turning point again for me. But I've used it in so many different ways, and now I use it as a bit of a daily practice too.
It's so wonderful that you're now on the other side. You have this mission in life to help empower others with the tools you learned. So what is your mission in life now?
My main mission is to bring up my two daughters in a open-minded, confident way, that they trust their bodies and they understand their potential and they believe in themselves. That's my ultimate goal. With that, I would love to, just really inspire people to know that there is another way. That when one door closes, I think they say in The Sound of Music, when one door closes, what did she say? When one door closes, there's a window opens, or something like that, that there is another way. And there are so many stories of people who've made incredible recoveries from chronic conditions like ME, CFS, and so many different versions of it too. If you research and look for that, you can really find some amazing stories, and to use that as a way to feel really hopeful and to investigate and to look outside the box, and to know that there are practitioners like me who do the lightning process, or lots of other techniques that are out there, and all the amazing people that I know you saw, and the changes to the diet. And there's so many ways of doing it, and everybody's way of getting well, it can be slightly different. So to look for those stories, to look for that that hope, because when people have CFS, and I remember from my own experience, but through my clients, you just feel hopeless and helpless. They keep trying new things, don't get the results that you want. When is it ever going to change? Am I going to be okay? People don't understand. So seek out those people who do understand. Seek out those people who have made the changes, who have done the research, amazing resources like you have of all these incredible stories. You know, what you're doing is so, so important to get those stories out and let people know that you can be well. You really, really can. So yeah, that's my other mission.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to share your story. I was Googling my symptoms to find like a quick fix, but then I started to shift when I started to Google recovery stories. And it turns out that the symptom bopping ways wasn't how people actually healed. So I bet you get this a lot. People who are curious for your services, or people who, I get this a lot too, of people want to know my exact viral titers. They want me to, I think they actually want me to like just fax them my medical records so they can believe that they too can heal. Why isn't this a helpful approach?
So in some ways, it's quite helpful to look for symptoms that are similar, because I think that gives people hope. You know, if they can get better with this particular symptom, then that means maybe I could too. At the same time, it's very important to remember that everybody's body is different. When people end up suffering with chronic fatigue syndrome, their journey to that point is going to be very different in terms of maybe the virus that they got or the trauma they experienced. Some people don't know what it was that led them to that place, right? They don't know what the thing that fired this all off was. So everyone's experience, everyone's history is so different that it's going to be very difficult to find a carbon copy of your own journey. What I would recommend people do, though, is to look beyond the symptoms and say what is going on at the root cause. Because when we go and see traditional doctors and specialists, that's what they tend to do, is they will be a specialist in a particular symptom or a particular body part, right? Let's look beyond that and say what is going on at the root here that is from healing in the way that it's designed to do. And what I find for the most part is that those who have chronic fatigue syndrome or ME have a nervous system that's out of balance, meaning that the sympathetic nervous system is too elevated, the parasympathetic nervous system is suppressed, which means that the immune system can't function in the way that it's designed to. If that is what I think most, everybody has in common. Once we can bring that back into balance, then the body can fire up and do its magical healing in the way that it's designed to do. So yeah, rather than seeing from the outside what matches up exactly, say what's maybe going on the inside.
What's going on at the root. I love that. Just some final questions here. So what other types of chronic conditions do you work with? Assume we might have some other listeners beyond the ME/CFS community.
Yeah, I work a lot with people who have, as we've discussed, ME and CFS. Anxiety is a big one, depression, chronic pain, digestive issues. Those are probably the top ones that I see clients with. But there is a huge range of different conditions that I've worked with, which are on my website. But I would always suggest, if somebody is dealing with something for a long period of time, and that's really what something chronic is something that's lasted for longer than 3 months, just give me a call. I'll always give a very honest assessment. I'm not here saying that I can heal everything. I will always give people an honest answer. If I think this is something that I can help and that we could work together and get great results, then I will say that. And if not, I will always try and point people in another direction.
Awesome. I'm just so curious. So in addition to the neuroplasticity work, I also found some other resources and books. Were there any good books you read along the way, or any other good things you came across that resonated with you?
In terms of books, there's lots to look at. Dr. Phil Parker, who created the Lightning Process, has some books. I would also look up one by Dr. Lissa Rankin called Mind Over Medicine. It's Lissa with 2 S's. There's a huge amount of science in there, and it's fascinating stuff. It's really, really good. There's also another one by a Joe Dispenza called You Are the Placebo, which is great too. There's also some really good podcasts as well. There is one called Broken Brain. It's really, really good, looking at all different modalities, mind-body connection related. And yes, I often put up on my Instagram as well other podcasts and books that I've been reading. So off the top of my mind, those are the two top books and the podcasts that I would recommend. But in terms of healing and building hope, reading and looking, listening to podcasts, finding TV shows, going through, as I said, like this great website that you put together, find stuff that supports what you want to achieve. Find stuff that inspires recovery and reminds us that it is possible. Because otherwise those messages can be a bit fear-inducing.
So now that you're fully healed, beyond these milestones like running the marathon, getting married, having children, starting this wonderful business where you're helping people reclaim their health and their lives, how has everyday life, just the little things in life, changed for you? For me, I used to be like this big rescuer, very defensive, overachieving, very externally validated person, reactive person. And the work I did to heal my brain, but also this whole journey, when you make it to the other side, you see life differently. Can you share about how you are showing up as a improved Jodie now that you're on the other side?
Improved Jodie. I always say, like,
the best Jodie.
Nobody's perfect, right? We all have our stuff. We're not looking for perfection. We're looking for progress always, and we are always on a journey, and we are always changing and growing. I just think that I interact with life differently, from a calmer place. Generally, I just feel more at ease. I respond to things differently, and again, as I said before, I'm human. I certainly have my days, and I yell at my kids when I wish I hadn't. Nobody's perfect, right? But just generally, I feel like my sense of ease in the world is much better, and I can shrug things off much quicker. I enjoy life more. And I find that when stuff happens, like right now, obviously we are all in a reasonably challenging time, and there's definitely moments where it's been tricky, but I think amongst that, I am able to find the joy much quicker. I'm able to bounce back much quicker. I'm more resilient. I can see the wood for the trees more. When I notice myself getting into that place of like, oh, this is too much, I can bring myself back from that place.
And are there, beyond the tools and the lightning process, are there any favorite rituals that you do for self-care and creating a state of peace and calm in your life?
Yes, I sometimes have a morning. I say sometimes because I do dip in and out. I'm just going to be honest. But I work towards most days getting up a good hour before my children do, and in that hour, I read an inspiring book. I stretch. I do some kind of meditation or visualization, and I have like a nice hot drink and just give myself some time. So that is a little ritual that I try and do, and I try and do just end the day. Gratitude practice as well, just writing down things I'm grateful for. Those are probably the main rituals that I have.
I love that, all those things.
We spoke about before, mind-body connection. I specialize obviously in how the mind can affect the body, but I'm also very aware of how the body affects the mind. I think about the food that I eat. I think about the exercise that I take. I think about being in nature and getting fresh air and laughing and dancing and finding ways to find joy. I do a little routine myself and with my kids too that I call laugh, dance and enhance. It's very different with an American accent. So if you say it's very different to me, but laugh, dance, enhance. And if we're in a funk, I will go to YouTube and we put on like a silly video, something like kittens falling over themselves or gender reveals gone wrong or something like that. Just something silly and fun and lighthearted that we laugh out loud, like slapstick humor. Then we will put on a song and just dance like nobody's watching. Loud, dancing, fun. And then we enhance it by using a little visualization. So really tapping into how good it feels to have this joy and have this laughter. So that's not a ritual as such, but something that I do come back to quite.
I love that. all the peaceful things you do, but also just the fun and cultivating joy. And yeah, um, so important in life, and very helpful for healing, to do what's in our health zones to cultivate that joy is just so wonderful. How can people contact you if they're interested in learning more? And do you work with people one on one, or is it more of a group setting? Can you explain?
Up until coronavirus happened, I was seeing people in person, either individually or groups of up to kind of 5 to 6. In lockdown, I'm doing this on Skype. So again, I can either do individual or groups of 3. My dates are on my website. If anybody wants details, the website is www.jodiegoss.com. Or they can follow me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm Jodie Goss Coaching, and I put my dates on there as well.
Okay. And are there discounts if you have 2 friends with you, or you do a group?
There's different prices. Yes, it's more expensive
Okay.
for the individual sessions than it is to do a group. But you'll get exactly the same care and attention if you're part of a group.
Okay, great. Well, it was such a joy and such an honor to share your powerful story. And thank you for informing me more about the lightning process. This was just so wonderful, and I just wish you all the best. And I'm so grateful that you could share your story with us today, Jodie.
Thank you, Liz. I'm so grateful that you invited me to chat today. I think what you're doing is amazing. It's so important to get these positive messages out there for people to know that recovery is very much within their reach, and that there's lots that can be done to help them get their health and their life back on track. So thank you for everything that you're doing as well. I'm really honoured to be a part of it all.
All right, and so everyone listening, I put all the links we mentioned today below in the description if you're interested to learn more. And you can visit healwithliz.com for my written interview with Jodie. And if something in this video resonated with you today, please give it a like and leave some love in the comments below. If you're interested in more uplifting recovery insights and inspiration, please subscribe to my blog, healwithliz.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at healwithlizc, where I share recovery insights, words of wisdom from myself and others who have healed, and occasionally a dance video or two. And if you have MECFS recovery insights, I'd love to hear from you. Reach me at hi@healwithliz.com. I believe by combining our wisdom, we can increase our recovery numbers. We're out of this together.